Welcome to the Journos on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. I'm Peter Martin. Hugh, MacDonald, Andrew Smith and Alison McConnell are here with me in the studio. And thank you very much to you for joining us, and of course for the many people who've decided to subscribe to get all our unique video content. If you want to join the football family, you can indeed by hitting that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. And let's not forget, you download the app. You'll get all the breaking news at your fingertips, as well as all the content that we have on our shows. And the Journos, as ever, will like to get into topics domestically and a little further afield as well. I thought we'd start, guys, with Lennon Miller, because he's the hot property. He's one of another one of those young talents where everybody hopes that he can go on to greater things. But the big question is the dilemma of when is the right time to go, Alison?
Yeah, I don't even think it's just a question of when is the right time to go. I think what they'll be looking at is what's the right club to go to. I think we had his dad and Lee came in and spoke to us at the end of the last transfer window and explained very clearly it's not about taking the first move that comes. It has to be a conversation about where they see the boy developing, where they see his weaknesses in his game, where they think he's going to improve, how to get the best out of him, what kind of system do they play. There are all sorts of questions. I think he's surrounded by really good people, giving him good advice. I don't think it will be a case of, here's a club, here's a potential double, treble your salary, do you want to go? I think they'll maybe try and weigh up lots of things round about it, which is, of course, great theory. We've spoken about it before. When someone actually comes in and says, here is a £3 million bid, and the club too, at what point do Motherwell say, you know, we want to accept this, we want to take the money because we can reinvest it into the structure of our club and into our first team. So there are lots of things to weigh up, but I do think they will be very, very keen that he goes to a club where he's going to develop and move on. The reality is money talks. So
yeah.
The reality is that money is put on the table in front of you. It's very hard to.
If you listen to Brian Caldwell, £2.5 million's nowhere near enough, Andrew. No. Whether it's Udinese or Eintracht Frankfurt, you get the sense that they think, okay, it's $4 million. You know, that's where they're in I think that's where his ballpark is.
4 or 5 million. They think when they're looking at the market and they're looking at what some of these players like of his ilk have gone for, but it's whether or not you just. It all starts, you're almost from a position of weakness because people think, who are Motherwell to turn down $2.5 million?
Yeah.
And I think they should turn down $2.5 million. If Motherwell got $3 million for, I think it was 3 or 3.5 for Turnbull, then that's where at least they should pitch it, and they probably think we can go a little bit higher. That's what you're saying in terms of the $4 million. You can understand why they've come to a kind of $4 million kind of ballpark.
Yeah. The good thing is they're not in a rush to sell him. They're not going to jump at the first offer. The boy's 18. He's going to keep developing. There'll be, if they do have the strength to say just now, we're going to hang on, come the summer, there will be much more interest in him. He's a player who's going to get better. I think you've seen it. I saw him quite a bit in the first season that he broke through, and then I saw him quite a bit at the start of this season. I thought he'd improved again. I thought he was more consistent. Right. Taking the captaincy, it's a huge thing at 18 to go and captain the team. I think he'll continue to improve, and I think there will still be interest in him if the club kind of stand firm just now. I also don't know if a move abroad would be the right thing just now at this point in his career. You think you go from living at home in a wee cocoon or being in a family environment to going and learning a new culture, new language, new style of play, new kind of football. It's an awful lot to have to take on board at the one time. I'm not saying that it doesn't come further down the line, but I think at this point in his career, would it be the right move?
Well, funny you say that, because if we're talking about the dilemma, and we'll get the opinion of you all on it, I look at it and I think to myself, if I was him, I'd wait to the summer. He's got a slight ankle knock at the moment that he's getting fixed. I'd wait to the summer, but I would go abroad, Hugh, because I think the whole landscape now has changed. And the other thing that I think European football offers him is that ability to allow himself to develop that technique, that style, away from the eyes of the home grounds, here, and also away from the possibility of going to England and sitting in the reserves.
Yeah, and England, with all due respect, if he's going to England at 18, Lennon Miller now, he's either sitting in reserves if he's talking about Premier League, or he's going to the Championship, which is a very, very physically robust league as well, So he may be going top-level Championship, bottom-level Premiership, goes bottom-level Premiership. Can you see him starting for even a bottom-level Premiership club? Not at the moment. Yeah. I actually think going abroad's good. And I think I don't know the laddie, that's the only thing. But I think it can... See, if you take the football out of it, if he's the kind of laddie that I suspect he is, because, I've listened to his dad, the life experience alone of going away at 18, and you see the way it has really benefited other players. I mean, Bellingham was on a different level. Haaland was on a different level. But these guys moved away very, very young from home. And it toughened them up. They moved to good clubs. I would, you're talking about Serie A and the Bundesliga now. And you're probably talking about teams that you'll get a game for as well.
Yeah.
That's what I would be looking at.
The reason why I would move if I was him to Europe as well is because I think that Scottish mentality, that work rate, Andrew, is more appreciated there. Yeah. And Gilmour's a different type of player, but he's still got a good work rate. McTominay, exceptional. Aaron Hickey, equally so. Lewis Ferguson. They all have that, attitude of, if I'm not on the ball, I'm going to work my back end off to get back on it, or make sure they don't do something with it.
Josh Doig as well,
yeah.
Who was, I think...
Liam Henderson as well, when he went there at first as well.
Yeah.
He was kind of the first to go out.
Yeah.
I think there is a good case to bypass England now.
Yes.
For young Scottish players, and you really test yourself and really give that different life experience within continental Europe.
And I think you can also as well embrace and obviously enhance the makeup of your skill set with the technique that's over there as well. I'm not for a minute suggesting that suddenly you've got even more time in the ball, but it's not as frenetic as here. 2 touches and somebody's banging you here.
Yeah, and I remember talking to Maurice Ross, who went over to Turkey, who complained, mind you, because they work so hard, much harder than players do here, in the sense, he said, I've only been at home, they have to live, a lot of these times they're practically living in the training centre.
Yeah.
They go there the day before the game, they're there the day of the game, they're there the day after the game. That was in terms of the Turkish club he was with, just because of the warm downs, because of, they really commit to it. And so if you commit to your profession, you'll get the most out of your talents.
Yeah, the only downside to it all, and again, I think you're right to point out that his dad is a good guiding light for him to say to him, listen, we're going to assess the clubs. Yes, it's all right, Motherwell accepting the offer, but we're going to assess the clubs to say, is this right? Somebody could offer great personal terms, but Lee Miller could turn around to Lennon and say, listen, it's great personal terms, Motherwell are happy with their 4 million, but you're not going to play, or this club plays a certain way. Do you understand? The great thing that you pointed out there, Ali, is the fact that Lee Miller and Lennon Miller and their agent will have to look and say, what is the complete package here that allows you, yes, to go to the club, but also the club plays the way that will utilise you?
Yeah, I think they have a plan of how they see his career spanning out and developing. I think they've got a very clear idea of the potential that he has, and they want to see him fulfil it. And I think they want a club and they want a manager that's going to commit to bringing out the best of him. That is the theory, though. I do think reality is a different thing. I think when someone says to you, here's 20 grand a week, I think it's a very, very difficult thing then to say, actually, I'll just stick to where I am and see what happens in the summer. I think it's very easy to have that conversation when it's a hypothetical. When it's a reality, I think it's much more challenging, because...
But that's the roll of the dice, Ali.
You don't know if it's going to come back. You break your leg, does it come back? There are so many vagaries in football, and also managers change very quickly, situations change very quickly at clubs. So even if you do sit down with a manager and think, this is a guy that's going to tease out the best, and this is... 3 months down the line, he might not be there. He might not actually be at the club. So there are lots of things to consider. I don't think it will be a case of let's jump at the first offer that comes. I think they know there is going to be widespread interest in him. I think we all know he's not going to be at Motherwell this time next season, and I don't think they'll take the first offer. However, when it's placed on the table in front of you, I think it's very hard to say no to.
But that's the gamble we had. Hugh and I had a big meeting, and we said, well, we offer McConnell the job, and you had to then make that jump away from that treacherous crew that you worked in the written press. And Hugh and I discussed it at great length. And said,
two of whom are there.
Will she
treacherous ones are sitting at the side.
Will she make the jump over to, and leave that side behind, But you did it. It's a gamble. We were wondering whether it was going to pay off.
She took a 20 grand a week cut to come here, but
exactly. But it was right for her.
It was right for her.
The other thing I was going to say to you about this whole situation is, if you were under normal circumstances looking at a really good Scottish player, if Rangers were on an even keel where, every penny wasn't a prisoner, if they were looking at it and you were taking John Bennett's words, John Gilligan, and of course now Patrick Stewart, talking about the blueprint for Rangers going forward, and something that's been successfully run at Celtic, Rangers would be one of those clubs that should be in the mix for a good Scottish player like Lennon Miller. Again, the flip side of it is, if it's a Celtic side, you say, is he going to play? Is he going to be regular next season? But if you were Rangers and you had that disposable income, he's perfectly in the mould for me for Rangers to go for him. But they don't have the money.
You're talking about 10 million over 4 years.
Yeah.
When you take his salary in, and so it's just.
But you see what I mean? He's the perfect fit if you were under normal circumstances.
They've already done it with Diamandi. It's probably.
But there's no more.
4 million.
Yeah, but there's no more to come.
I think the reason why I suggested Lennon Miller from a Rangers perspective it is quite simply, when you listen to outgoing chairman, interim chairman, chairman and chief executive now, Fraser Thornton, you actually look and you say to yourself, well, wait a minute. He rather than buying 7 foreign players coming in, you've got somebody who understands Scottish football. He's just that. It's the ideal fit. You're right. Yeah. Diamandi is 4 million.
But Diamandi was when they had money.
Yeah.
Now they don't have money.
No, but they would have.
They maybe thought
they had money.
If he sits, and this is the key element here, if he sits, and this is where I think a number of Rangers fans, for me, will realise that the balancing act, because we're all talking about it, Rangers don't have money at the moment, but they do go through what I call a positioning, Andrew, where they do have disposable income, and that comes round about April when the season tickets are renewed, so that gives them money, and then there's obviously various payouts that give them money, so they do juggle, Rangers, at certain points in the season where they know they're not going to have disposable income. They may well have to influence people to give them soft loans. But when you get to April and then you hit May and the transfer window opens, they do have money. So if, for example, Lee Miller says to his boy, listen, hang out to the summer, you'd look and you'd say to yourself, if you've got money, are you going to spend it on another foreign player coming in? Because they will undoubtedly have to recruit in the summer. I'm not saying they're going to sign Lennon Miller. I'm just saying if you were going to use the money that eventually will come in the summer, Hugh, you would say he's surely part of what your blueprint is.
Yes.
He's exactly what your blueprint is.
But the problem is they've been down that road and they're racking up 17 million losses. Now, that money that comes in the summer is not just like free money. Unfortunately, a lot of people over the years have thought so.
Yes.
But that's money that keeps the lights on and it keeps the wages going. That is your money.
It's still a substantial wage bill to service.
That is your money for the rest of the season. I think that if Patrick Stewart is, and we know he's a serious man, if he's serious, he'll be looking at things and saying, well, there's real tough decisions to make. I mean, they're sitting in a situation now where they're trying to get rid of Dessers, and Dessers, the reason they're trying to get rid of him is because of the wages.
Yes.
And there's others. I mean, you saw the exodus last summer when they cleared off in a fire sale 4 or 5 players for 1,000 to get rid of wages. Now, if they cannot come to this summer and say, oh, we've got the season ticket money in again, we'll do it all again.
Yeah.
We'll start what we've did before. I think if they're serious about what meets them in the short-term future, they've got to stick to their plans.
Okay, flip side of it then is we've discussed the Rangers scenario, which I think he would be ideal because of listening to their chairman.
Me too, because he would play.
Yeah,
This
is a starter.
play.
So the flip side is, for me, I've suggested Lennon Miller would be the ideal signing for Rangers in the summer because they could go through what I would call a second exodus, a second clearing out, and try and get rid of a lot of people and say, okay, we're going to have a smaller squad, and we're going to take that move to get a Lennon Miller. Let me flip it round and say to yourself,
Craig White and say, where's that number for ticketus again?
yeah, well, I personally think my personal viewpoint is they will have money. It's how they
Have
want
to spend some kind of money.
It's how they want to spend it, Andrew. I do think Rangers are more than capable of looking and saying, in the summer, if we're going to adopt this strategy, then there's another clear out coming, there's another wage reduction, there's going to be a smaller squad, but what we're going to do is we're going to try, and if you take the chairman's words, we're going to try and buy players that you can sell on. He's the man. I think Lennon Miller is perfect. If Rangers are going to follow that blueprint, there's the perfect one to start your plan. Yeah. But on the flip side of it all, if they can't get him, and if he decides, okay, somebody's going to have to convince me, if it's not a European club, it's not, if Celtic are going to try and continue the way they go about their business, then do they stump up 4 million and say, Callum McGregor's not getting any younger, he could be the future, come and play here, you'll slowly but surely get into the team. Can Brendan Rodgers influence him? Is he a Celtic player?
Maybe in time, but does he want to wait? Would he want to give it that? Would Lennon Miller himself want to give it that time?
That's my question, because as you and Hugh, everybody agrees, goes to Rangers, he plays. Plays every week.
You know, for all everybody says about how Celtic mucked up and when it came to John McGinn eventually got offered the same money at Celtic as he got offered at Aston Villa.
Yeah, but I'm going to say something to you, Andrew. See, John McGinn at the time, I don't know if you can remember, Hugh, when we were having the discussions, when they were going for John McGinn from Hibs, the general view was he'll be a really good signing, but he's not a starter.
That's what I was. That's what I was about to say.
That was exactly. That was why the decision was made.
That's why he didn't. That's why he didn't go. And to be honest with you, I would still say that was the right call at the time. That I thought Christie had offered more than he would have at that time. And you look at Christie now, for all Christie gets his critics, look at where Bournemouth are tearing it up. I know, Bournemouth are tearing it up.
Christie's a good player.
So Lennon Miller, would Celtic sign him?
I think Celtic would sign him, but I don't think Lennon Miller would be necessarily at ease with going there and thinking, does my career stall here? Look at David Turnbull.
Yeah. And the other flip side of it, just to finish on Lennon Miller, I think we're of the consensus that Europe is good, a great move for him if he gets the right deal. The flip side of it is the failures. And I say failure, I think I'm being slightly harsh here, because players sometimes find their level, sometimes they do fail. I think Islam Farouz is the perfect example of someone who was given the wrong advice. You've got Jake Hastie at Motherwell the last time around. You've got Karamoko Dembele, who has slowly but surely started to get a wee bit at Blackpool.
Yeah.
But
it's a good season last year.
Yeah, and now he's at Queen's Park Rangers. I think he's at Queen's Park Rangers.
Queen's Park Rangers have signed him as well at the end of the season. They've extended load. I think failure's all relative. I mean, it's like
that's what I'm loath to say. They're all failures.
I think. I mean, Farouz is the was. But I always remember people talking about John Fleck at 15. He didn't make it, and I say, well, he played for his country. He played in the Premier League. He won promotions.
At Sheffield United.
He won trophies at Sheffield United. That's a good, solid career, is it not?
Solid career. It's like, what do we expect? Do we expect everybody to be the next Bellingham?
I think you're maybe looking at someone like maybe like a Liam Miller, God rest him, but like maybe even Manchester United. And that's a classic example of saying, here's a move you just can't say no to.
14 senior games.
Who says no to Man United at that time? And it was Alex Ferguson. Like, who says no? Like Celtic come in. However, in retrospect, you can see you know, like maybe another season at Celtic, he would have been a more mature player and capable of going on and you know, like holding down a place in a team of that ilk. However, the reality is, like, when certain clubs come knocking on your door, you never know if there's going to be another opportunity.
Exactly. I mean, somebody's come to you and saying, this is what we're offering you, Manchester United, under Fergie. You've got to back yourself as well. You can't say, well, I don't know if I'm really
And
up for it.
footballers all back them.
All good, all the very top ones.
Yeah. Well, listen, McCarthy and MacArthur moved and had a good career.
Great careers.
McCarthy's hasn't ended the way he would have wanted it, but he certainly achieved.
Where is he?
Well, this is the great conundrum. I'll let you try and work out where he is, but I think James himself will look back with pride with MacArthur on what they achieved. FA Cup. You know,
and playing in the top division, well, now the world, the top, and both of them having really, really good solid careers. I was actually thinking when I was coming in there about players that just kind of disappeared about it, and it was another Manchester United one. I don't know if you ever remember Federico Machado.
Makeda. Yeah, he scored against Aston Villa.
He came on and scored against Aston Villa, and I would have thought, here's the answer to Fergie. You know, here's a new, bright start. And I said, I'll have to. That's a good thing about the internet now. You can follow him, and his clubs go down the whole screen, and he's now playing in Greece. He's still playing.
And do you know what the great thing about having all those clubs? It reminds me of the Chick Chanley. All of them with a signing on fee. You know. And by the way, the great thing about it, and I think this is, whether it's Makeda, whether it's, you know, other players, I mean, that have those careers, we are sometimes brutal in assessing it as a failure. The players themselves will look and say, can I take care of my family forever?
Aye.
Have I managed to get enough money that makes me comfortable? And as you rightly pointed out, Hugh, in a wonderful tribute to Denis Law, you don't need to go and be a carpet salesman after you hang up your boots. And that is the ultimate for a lot of fans who turn around and go, you should have stayed here, you should have done this. Life is about, at times, you know, on that journey, you may well want to get married, you may well want to have kids. You, even on an individual basis, can I take care of myself in the future?
Yeah, and I also think there's a career satisfaction. I think there's a lot to be said for being and playing your football in at a club where you feel valued. I think a lot of people, a lot of players, you need to be loved. Like you need to
We all
feel
do.
as though, you know, you need to find a home.
that road, by the way, for God's sake.
I think if you find somewhere like that you're playing your best and you're very satisfied, I think there's so much.
Well, look, Max Johnson's at Sturm Graz. You know, he's embarking, and hopefully, you know, has got a good career ahead of him. You know, you might look and you say to yourself, well, Ryan Gauld. Everybody had high hopes for him breaking into the Scotland side regularly.
But Ryan Gauld has had quite an impressive.
He's had a great career. Ryan Gauld will look back with pride,
and really has caught the eye in a league that's quite a demanding league that they're playing in. Like a few individual accolades.
It's a big call. Where does he go, Miller? Where do you think? We've gone Europe. You going England?
I don't know. Right now, I think the best move is to stay at Motherwell until the end of the season. I think he sees the season out and then goes. However, that's not. I do think if someone had to come back in
February the 2nd,
someone comes back in and says, "Here's a huge offer on the table." Are the club strong enough to resist? Do the club sit and say, "God, what do we do with that money?"
Yeah.
You know, and the player himself.
Listen, we've got lots of great topics to talk about. Obviously, with Goals Fest in mind, I watched a game between Barcelona and Benfica, which was just mayhem, which brought me to the point of, you know, top goals in the Champions League, crazy games, you know, lots of excitement, twists along the way. So I've got a list of great games that we'll talk about. That's another thing. I had one here, obviously, reacting to Ruben Amorim and his comments about Manchester United being the worst in the worst Manchester United side in the history. And then, of course, I thought to myself, well, we can get to them. We'll talk about them. But because you mentioned, and I think the sad passing of Denis Law, I thought it would be great since we were all together. And I thought, you know, Law, even after all those years of passing and how, you know, highly regarded he is with the Scottish public and football public and the English fans who were lucky enough to see him. playing for Manchester United, I thought to myself, well, what a great chance to look and see about that greatest Scottish 11 and how it looks and how it's evolved over the years, because Denis Law's still in the greatest Scottish 11 that I have
Ballon
in
d'Or
my
winner.
mind.
If you can't get in with a Ballon d'Or, your name.
Listen, the great thing is Hugh and I have actually been involved in a programme where we talked about the greatest Scottish 11, but I think we did that programme about 10 years ago, Hugh, and I just wonder if it's changed so dramatically in the 10 years.
I think Andy Robertson might be the only one that you would have a...
Ali, you've hit the nail on the head. He's the
the
only
only
one
one
that
that you would
actually...
say.
And he's still a toss-up for me.
I didn't have him. I didn't have anybody
That's
in
not
there.
Tommy Gemmell and Andy
Gemmell's
Robertson.
played in 2 European Cup
And
finals.
Tommy Gemmell, people forget, Tommy Gemmell was voted best left back in the world for 2 seasons in a row, and he was nominated, I think, either 2 times or 3 times for the Ballon d'Or.
Yeah.
Didn't win it, but he was nominated.
Yeah.
So
And even then, sometimes when you were looking in sometimes people would look back and say, well, greatest Scottish 11, I have great fondness for Sandy Jardine. Sandy Jardine was a brilliant player. Sandy Jardine actually played midfield and then dropped back. He was a great player, but he was a right back. But the ultimate right back is Danny McGrain. Do you know what I mean? Danny McGrain was that good. He played left back when Sandy Jardine was in the team.
The thing about the Scotland thing, though, is there's this, I think, uninformed commentary that goes about that, I saw it in a lot of obits from Denis, that Denis played in a Scotland team that underachieved in not qualifying for World Cups. But if you actually look at the World Cups that didn't qualify, it was a different way of it. You had to be top of the group. And, 62, for example, they didn't qualify because they get beat in a playoff against Czechoslovakia. And very narrowly defeated it, and 4 top Scotland players out. And Czechoslovakia got to the final of the World Cup.
And the other thing which a lot of people might not take
66 is Italy got there. 70 was West Germany. I mean,
But 62's Czechoslovakian side would be made up of practically one team, because it was Eastern Bloc where, for example, when they talk about Vojvodina, it's made up of the entire international squad
Yugoslavia.
because of the structure of the country at the time. So I think that's a good point you make, Hugh.
Because they didn't. Scotland in World Cup campaigns were beating Italy at Hampden in '65. An Italian team, but obviously got beaten away, so that's them out. And they're drawing with Germany with Müller, Beckenbauer and all that in '69 at Hampden, but losing 4-3 away and going out. I mean, this wasn't a sort of feckless bunch of, they were always finishing second in the group, but it was just that the World Cup was smaller and you had to win your group. I mean, so there's...
Did they know that when they beat England in '67, and then proceeded to lose to Northern Ireland?
That was the classic one. I think that was the Euros, wasn't it?
Euros, but I just mean they could never get to the Euros
either. But
that's underachievement.
That was underachievement.
Yeah.
But the World Cup's different.
Andrew.
But I think a hard man, Billy. Do you remember that? Play for today.
I was going to say to you, there's a few people in Northern Ireland not be happy with you suggesting Scotland lost to Northern Ireland.
But when you look at that, we're talking about my lifetime, and I can't put Hughie Gallagher up front or any of the Wembley Wizards of, Jack Harkness or anything like that, or Alec James, because I don't know of them. So my lifetime, which would probably be, say, from 1960 onwards, in terms of watching football, 59 was my first game. I would say, the core of that 60s, 70s, you can't whack it.
Yeah, the other thing about it as well is, when you're putting together, if we had a, and I've not been scathing towards us, because of our age here, because sometimes when you look at these things and try all subjective on what you've seen, and if I had a batch of young journalists all in here, a lot of the paying public now think football down south only started in 1992 with the Premiership. Up here, you get to a situation where there are generations that only believe there's 2 half-decent Rangers sides and 2 half-decent Celtic sides. Do you follow me? Because one of them reached the UEFA Cup final. One of them, reached the UEFA Cup final under Walter Smith. you know, so and then there's the 9-in-a-row Rangers side, and then there's the Celtic side under Brendan Rodgers. So some people think there are only great sides that must have had Henrik Larsson in the team, whereas this average age that we have here, Ali, I've put together 11 and I've thrown in subs just to try and cover my tail on it. But yet again, none of them are modern day. You know, there's only one, as you mentioned, Andy Robertson, who's a modern day player.
See, before you start, there's also, I don't know if you would have this proviso in it. Right, Jimmy Johnstone. Right, we all know what we think about Jimmy Johnstone. 23 caps,
yes,
4 goals. But Jimmy Johnstone, by his own admission, he never clicked. He said it himself. He never felt comfortable the way he felt comfortable with Celtic.
Yes.
So Jimmy Johnstone wasn't necessarily one of the great Scotland players, but he was one of the great Scottish players.
Great Scottish talents without being a great Scottish player.
Scotland.
With all due respect, you know, to Jimmy Johnstone, there's a couple of things I'm going to throw in here. Some people would view them as grenades. Selection by committee was a thing that had gone against a number of players in the 60s. That's the first thing. Secondary to that, some of the managers weren't the greatest managers at international level. I mean, I'm saying that because, quite simply, you know, Ali McLeod was a charismatic figure. Was he a great Scotland manager? The answer is no. Was Willie Ormond a great Scotland manager? They got there. You know, I'm talking about speaking to players. I'm not making this up. I'm speaking to players who are turning around and saying, well, they weren't great managers. They weren't the best managers. You weren't a great manager to manage Scotland at that time. If you go back, Hugh, am I out of order?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely. The only thing I would say, Andrew, would be about Johnson would get into my team, and he would get in my team on Scotland for one game alone, and that was the post-Troon robot game.
Yeah.
Where he was absolutely sensational. I mean, he was just against England. He was absolutely sensational that day. He was Jimmy Johnstone versus Real Madrid that day. He was just jinky, you know. So he get. But I know what you're saying. I mean, I think the management was very, very difficult at that time as well, because if you look at the actual hierarchy of the Scotland managers, I think Jock Stein came to it too late.
Yes.
I thought Alec came to it too soon and was never going to continue, because by that time the whole world had changed to club football.
Yeah.
And international football became almost a retirement fund for managers, you know, top class managers. So yeah, and some of the management that was going on in the 60s and 70s, it wasn't top class. It was, you know, clicking 11 players, right, boys, just go out there and show what you're up to and all that.
Even Maurice Malpass told me that about the last time I think Scotland beat England at Hampden. When was that? Was that 84, was it?
Was it the Rouse Cup?
It was the Rouse Cup.
Yeah, 1-0.
And I said, what did Stein say? You know, because Stein really liked Maurice Malpass. And he said, you know, he said very little in terms of his team talks and all that. You know, maybe I always feel that, and Gordon Strachan has said this, you feel a bit inhibited. He said himself, he said, these are not my players. You know, Gordon Strachan would have gone through anybody at club level, but you can't do that at international level.
Yeah.
You almost have to. You know, it's no you telling them what to do. It's almost you're saying, please come and play for me. Please come and give me your best.
Yes,
absolutely. So telling you, if you don't give me your best, you're out.
But Strachan was in the other position, of course, as well, where he didn't have the pool that players had before. I think people don't realise nowadays how deep and talented the pool was in the 60s, 70s. I mean,
you could actually afford to say,
incredible.
you could actually
fall
afford
out
to
of
say,
players.
come on, boys, let's just go out there and show how good because they were that good anyway.
I mean, there was players not getting into the team. I mean, the classic one always, and I've talked to him about it, is Andy Gray not getting to the 1978 World Cup. Now, Andy Gray, there's only 3 people in the history of English football have won the Young Player of the Year and Player of the Year in the same season. And Andy Gray is one of them.
Yeah.
And the other 2 are Gareth Bale and Cristiano Ronaldo. And Andy Gray doesn't get in a 24-man squad to go to the World Cup. That's how deep the pool is.
Yeah, but with all due respect, Derek Johnston was the top goal scorer in the country,
Yep.
and couldn't get into the 1978 team. He didn't get a game, and Derek Johnston for me could play centre half, centre mid, centre forward. He had a great touch, a terrific player.
He even got Ruffy's perm, you know, so that they...
Yeah, I mean that for me is
So that could be his calling card.
You're gobsmacked by these decisions. But the other thing is, I might as
perm
well.
or the...
Well, the decision for the perm is another matter. But I would like to tell you the 11 that I've picked.
Oh, sorry.
And then you can debate it. Now, I've put Gorham in because Gorham was a great shot stopper. Gorham's longevity is not there. Gorham's commitment to the cause is not there at times because he had periods where he just thought, I'm not going to go. And, I remember a particular period where he just dropped out completely. But as a goalkeeper, he was fantastic on his game as a shot stopper. I've got a back four of McGrain, Miller, McLeish and Robertson. I'm almost kicking myself because I'm thinking, how can I not pick Hansen? But I've picked Andy Robertson in there. The midfield four for me, I've gone for Jinky. I've put McStay in. I've gone for Souness. And I've gone for John Robertson of Nottingham Forest. That's my four across the middle. And then I've gone for Dalglish and Law. Yeah. Now, I'll throw the subs. Joe Jordan scores at 3 World Cups. Fantastic leader up front. Alan Hansen, Billy Bremner, Jim Baxter, Jim Leighton, Gordon Strachan and Willie Henderson. Now, I haven't got any modern day players in there. I haven't got any modern. But somebody could say to me, well, wait a minute, you've missed out maybe Dave Mackay. Yeah. He could be a sub. And there's...
I'd have Baxter in the team.
You'd have Baxter in the team, and I stand to be corrected.
No, but I wouldn't...
Who do you take out?
I would take McStay out, play Souness and Baxter.
Yeah.
But not strong
enough.
Murdoch? He didn't do it. He got 12 caps for Scotland.
I know, but that's what we judge the talents.
Murdoch for me, I'd have Murdoch. My views on Murdoch. But I just and Bremner, I think would be very unlucky to miss out. But he would miss out. He'd be a sub like you. Yeah. And I'd probably put Gemmell at left back rather than Andy Robertson, but it would be a toss-up. I've no real arguments with that team, actually, of yours, I would actually put, who's your centre-backs? Miller and
McLeish.
Aye, definitely.
Yeah. See the point with Baxter, though, and this is something that I think of a certain generation would argue the point. Jim Baxter, early 60s, in that great Rangers side, was strutting his stuff. Jim Baxter, second time around, apart from Wembley, second time around, the Rangers side, I'm not saying he was half the player he was.
But his body of work, even if you just said if you said that the body of work, if you say Jim Baxter at Wembley, right, 3 hours at Wembley,
it was almost an exhibition.
You would say
down to 10 men and all that. I'm not having all the Wembley.
Oh, I am.
No.
What was the Wembley before when he scored the 2 penalties though? That 3 hours. I mean, he was just. You still got to do it. You're up against the world champs. Yes. Okay, they're not down to 10 men because they still play the 11. They've got one up front who's injured, but they've still got a World Cup winning midfield, and he's taken a World Cup winning midfield to the cleaners. He's taken them beyond. He's taken them to the very edge. Alan Ball, who in my case would be the best player, would man the match in the World Cup final '66. He's taken Alan Ball to the precipice of humiliation.
Yes.
You've got to be a good player to do that.
Do you know, strangely enough, when we talk about whether football was better in the old days and all this, there's a clip going around social media, and it's from a German TV station of the Ellen Road leg of the 1970. So I watched it yesterday, Celtic against Leeds United, the 1970 semi-final, the European Cup.
Yeah.
Pish. The football is dire. It's absolutely dire.
The whole 90 minutes?
I didn't watch the whole... This was the highlights, right? These are the highlights.
Yeah.
It's like big hoofs into the box.
Yeah.
Right. It's half cleared. Defenders. Celtic's goal comes from it. 3 bobbing about like the guy's trying to clear it. It's like it was like that Dundee derby the other night.
But remember, snapshots don't tell the whole story of.
I remember
but that's the highlights.
Yes.
If there was anything better, they would have shown it.
No, of course.
Jinky goes past a couple of men. tamely, shoots tamely. That's his highlight. Shoots tamely at the keeper.
Let me flip that to you and say to yourself, yeah, that may well have been the highlights of Ellen Road. You take the highlights of Hampden Park.
I know, I've
It's a
watched them
different
recently.
It's a different kettle of fish.
But this was-
Belland Road that day, Andrew, was a tatty field.
It was a tatty field, yeah. It was
So you're not going to get a passing game. You're going to get the ball.
By the way,
But
can I
you might
just
have
say something?
defenders who can defend rather than go...
Listen, 10 years ago, I had a full-scale argument with him because he didn't have John Robertson.
Aye,
in the
I was
Scotland
wrong.
11. But
That's
by
the
the way,
great thing. You've got to remember that you're wrong. That's
absolutely, I stand by. I stand by and say to myself, I'm wrong on Jim Baxter, and you take McStay out. But McStay at 17 years of age was outrageous.
It was just saying that I am wrong.
I'm happy that yeah. But by the way, John Robertson, for some people go, what?
John Robertson.
John
Robertson, 2 European Cups.
Of course.
And he made one goal for Francis and he scores the other one against Hamburg.
A fag in his mouth.
Absolutely, but John was like that. I mean, he loved a cigarette, you know.
I had 10, year 11. The only one I didn't have was, I didn't have Andy Robertson.
Yeah.
I had Malpass.
Can I just say, you had Maurice Malpass, did you? Yeah. Wow, that is a big shout, actually. Maurice Malpass is a great player. Can I just say something
What about Alison? What do you have?
I think I'd probably be the same as you.
Yeah.
I think that'd probably be my 11.
Yeah.
Andy Robertson's the only one. Because I've seen most, I would go with Andy Robertson just on my own viewing.
Who would you have at left back?
Gamel.
I understand why you would say that. And by the way,
I'm not arguing with Robertson. I don't think it's like it would be a toss-up. I just think Gamel was like, and apart from anything else, I always laugh that, you know, people talk about whenever they pick the Celtic team, obviously the first one to drop is Jim Craig, you know.
Yeah.
But I always laugh that Jim Craig and Gamel, and if you ever watch, here's a game that really stands up well. If you watch the 67 final, you know, with a modern eye, it really stands up.
European
Cup
Cup
final, yeah.
I have watched that. That does stand up.
And one of the things that stands up is the way the fullback. I mean, you've got a team in the 60s where the right fullback is setting up the left fullback for a goal.
I know.
Yeah.
That was
and by the way,
revolutionary back then.
Let's not forget, at that time in the 60s, Kilmarnock, great side, Dunfermline.
Oh, there was all
you know, you'd Celtic and Rangers, great sides, great players. Some players that
Indeed, the early 60s.
some players would stroll into the sides, you know, now without even thinking about it, you know. But
Although the physicality is so different, it's very
athletic.
difficult.
am I out of order?
Athleticism
Am I
is
out of order suggesting Gorham's in there?
No.
No, I had Gorham.
I think Gorham's probably the best
Gorham would
goalkeeper.
no.
I had Gorham.
Gorham was unbeatable one season.
Yeah. And I bow to this because I know you've paid tribute to him before, but you know, we've all had little snapshots. I was lucky enough on 2 or 3 occasions to be in Denis Law's company for a sustained period of time and got a chat, you know, an extensive chat with him and thoroughly enjoyed him as a person, him regaling stories to me. And obviously you have people like yourself, Hugh, who can talk about him having seen him play. You know, I'm lucky. As a kid, for me, I witnessed, and I'm no discredit to Denis Law, I witnessed the greatest ever player I've ever seen in Ken Dalglish. But Law, he's still in the side. He's still up front.
Yeah.
He's definitely there.
Yeah. He's one of those players. I never really saw him play, but you just know. Sometimes you just. I know you wouldn't normally take your lead from this, but I've read enough to know. You know, I've read enough of people that I respect, like Hugh, to know that he's in there, and that was the easiest. That was the easiest part of the team was Dalglish Law.
I think it was easiest for me. I think it's tick. It's just,
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing about Law is that Law has always got this reputation as just being a great goal scorer, which he was. But again, the other day there, when I had to write about him, I went down a YouTube rabbit hole and I watched the 67 game at Wembley, and I was taken by the fact that how good a footballer he was. This sounds daft, because he was coming off the wing. He wasn't playing right. The Scotland were sort of interchanging up front, and he was joining up play And that all came back to me, that side of him, that he always called, I know he wore number 10, but he always say he was a number 10 rather than a number 9.
And if I've got to pay tribute to Miller and McLeish, is because they were such a great partnership. Alex scored a great goal in the cup final against Rangers when he was at the edge of the box and curls it into the roof of the net. I mean, he was a good footballer. Willie was just absolutely fantastic as well. I've got to mention Souness, slightly biased with the Liverpool angle on it, but Souness, despite the fact that people think he was an enforcer, Alison, he could play football. He was a brilliant.
It's funny actually. I was recently watched some Souness clips, and I probably saw him at the very end of his career when he'd come up to Rangers, and so you have a very specific idea. But when you go back and watch his Liverpool contribution and that Liverpool team, when you think of the company that you're keeping, I think it does him a disservice to see him as only a hard man in the middle of the park. I think there was more to him than that. Yeah,
we've picked 11. We've picked subs. You can give us your view on it. What do you think as well in the comments section on our YouTube channel? Certainly a I wish we'd that 11 now.
I was just thinking that.
I wish we'd the subs. But give us your thoughts on it. I'd love to hear from you on it. There's a couple of points I want to talk about before the programme
No Scott
ends.
McTominay.
Exactly.
Somebody will tweet in, no Scott McTominay.
Yeah, absolutely. And good luck with
Scored a couple of goals for Napoli.
And good luck with your second year exams. We accept your opinion. But before we finish this programme, can I just say, I'll get that in the next cube, I don't care. I always like a top 5. And I was thinking about the top 5 worst Manchester United managers in history, because one, I think Ruben Amorim's comments were ill-advised.
I don't know where he's going.
That's what I thought.
That's what I thought.
What's the plan?
Yeah, the worst Manchester United team. I've seen some rank rotten Man United teams. So I think he should have maybe thought about he knew he was given the Journos a headline.
He said it. He actually said, "There's your
headline."
There's your headline. But by the way, Ruben, calm your jets. Unless you completely and utterly implode and can't get a trick out of these guys, who effectively, a lot of them are just woeful. Should never have the Man United jersey on. But Hugh, I've put together 5 or 6 managers that we can all debate here. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer should never have been given the job. Franco Farrell, Louis van Gaal, Wolf McGuinness, Dave Sexton, and by the way, I'm loath to even put him in because I know the circumstances of David Moyes, and I don't think
Tommy Doc.
Well, Tommy Docherty won an FA Cup and got them back out of the old second division. And Tommy Docherty, had he not had a misdemeanour off the field,
He'd built a good team.
I don't think Tommy Docherty might have got a chance of getting them within an ace of the league had they stuck with him.
Good young team, Coppell and Hill, etc.
Jimmy Nicholl was there, Martin Buchan was there,
good team.
Stuart Pearson, really good player.
Wolf McGuinness, see the thing about it's a harsh thing, worst managers, isn't it? But
36% win percentage, Wolf McGuinness.
Now, Wolf McGuinness was handed the stick that he had to come after Matt Busby. Not only had to come after Matt Busby, but had to come after Matt Busby when the team was disintegrating anyway. Right. Best was disintegrating physically and mentally. His star players were done. The whole team needed a revamp. Plus, he had Matt Busby along the corridor. He had a terrible
stick.
I think the whole thing about the managers there, and I think this about Manchester United is, it's not a management problem with Manchester United.
That's funny, because that's even Amorim come in and I says, this guy's got it. This guy will sort it out. And my 15-year-old said to me, Dad, he said, nobody sorts out Manchester United. No manager sort out Manchester United. They get sorted out by Manchester United. And it was like, I thought, God. And see, the way it started, I had to go back to him and say, son, You're sure a bit more wisdom than me. I still think, a good manager will change it all, but it's systemic.
I'm loath to include David Moyes in it because he was
Ralph McGuinness.
Ed Wood. Well, of course, following Sir Alex is difficult at the best of times, but for me, the worst chief executive in the history of Manchester United, Ned Woodward, who basically
David Gill was the biggest problem. David Gill was the biggest problem for David Moyes, no Alec Ferguson.
Yeah.
David Gill was the biggest problem because Gill left at the same time as Fergie, and Fergie was very supportive of David and would get everything from him, no headlines backing, but Gill going and then, left with a transfer window. First transfer window, so important, put down your market. Transfer window was a shambles. And then it just started. And actually, it didn't go that far downhill for Moyes when you look at how far Manchester United have gone.
He had just over a 50% win ratio, 26 wins, 10 draws, 15 losses.
But if you're going to say...
He had a good percentage win ratio. The problem with him, with David, for me, was the structure. Yes. The structure was against him. They were against him, and they had this notion of the way they wanted to play football, and he didn't get the chance for me to actually just get the players he wanted and build his own side.
I mean, but if you look at post-Fergie, you telling me that the problem at Manchester United, which we're greasing the managers, that Louis van Gaal's a bad manager, Mourinho's a bad manager, Ten Hag is a bad manager, Ruben Amorim is a bad manager. It doesn't make sense. David Moyes is a bad manager.
He's had 6 home defeats in the league, the worst in their 131-year history, Amorim. They're 13th in the table. It's 6 wins from 16 games. And now he's come out and slaughtered the team. It doesn't augur well for him, Ali, does it?
It really doesn't, because I think you can't put that genie back in the bottle. Once you've brought it out, it's very, very difficult. I don't know where he goes from here. I think that interview, I thought it felt when you were watching it, as you look back on it. But also too, you're thinking, you now know that you can't get a tune out of him.
I know.
Yeah,
it was a tough one. It was really early. It was almost, as you say, the admission of defeat in it. Yeah. I'm defeated by this job already.
I don't know where else you go with it. I don't know how you walk back into the dressing room and say, right, guys.
I saw Paul Scholes. You had one of these things. I go down these, as we talked about it before, the rabbit holes, and I saw Paul Scholes on social media going through the Manchester United team, which was sell or keep.
Yes, I watched that, and I thought to myself,
it was like bargain hunt. Yes. He was just going. I think he kept Manu. I think that was a bit. I mean, I might be exaggerating, but there wasn't. There
wasn't too many. And by the way, at that point, I thought to myself, good luck getting a 1-to-1 with them when they're coming up to the side of the park with you. Because there'll be in the warm-up there'll be a few trying to fire the ball up because he's sold half the team.
Well, I mean, and you said, but there wasn't many big arguments about it. I think that the whole culture around Manchester United has disintegrated. They're no longer what they were culturally. And I think the Ratcliffe and Brailsford don't have a Scooby. Now, they might be...
He's a horror.
Might be very good at doing this, that and the next thing. But the decisions that they've made at Manchester United have been astonishingly bad. Like and we're not saying this in hindsight. We're saying that, when they've already said Ten Hag's away, we'll have a new summer and all that. He wins the FA Cup. We'll just keep him. No. And then the whole pursuit of Amorim, the whole recruitment process, the due diligence on recruitment, bringing in outside guys to try and shake up the department, not giving them the strength, doing things that you'd never thought with Manchester United, where stopping the canteen workers' Christmas hamper, it's mad stuff.
Reminded me of my Celtic days.
Well, to be honest with you, I thought about it for the PLZ Christmas party, Hugh, but in the end, player power took over, and you ended up having to...
had that box of Old Spice anyway that you had to get rid of.
Exactly. I got high karate on a rope for Ali. She was happy. So, but you do have to. You do have to consider the whole package, and I think your boy is showing tremendous experience on it, because the structure of Manchester United is so against the manager at the moment that it's unbelievable. And by the way, I wouldn't even dare mention to Fergie you know, and David Moyes inherited a bad side. My God, they won the bloody league.
Well, by 11 points.
Yes.
Another
They
thing
weren't
is,
a good side, mind you. They weren't. They were not a good side.
Well, they had Rooney in it and Van Persie, for God's sake.
They weren't a good side.
Yeah,
and they were a young side as well. People say it was an old aging side. They handed over a team an average age of 25, I think.
the funny thing about it is,
11 points clear in the league.
I'll tell you one thing, and I know it's slightly controversial, but, you know, it would take somebody of Fergie's stature to come in and absolutely sort them out.
But only
He got 5 years.
I was going to say, there's two things. He got 5 years.
David Moyes might have sorted it out in 5 years.
10 months.
You also have to be prepared to hand over the reins a wee bit. You have to be prepared to allow someone else to become the most powerful person at the club.
that wouldn't happen.
Those Uber managers don't exist anymore.
Never
You wouldn't
happen
have
again.
and see, managers now, they don't mind that now. See, likes of Alec Ferguson, whoever, you know, Steen, Shankly, whoever, who had to be the biggest man at the club, who'd be talking to the cleaners about, you know, what detergent they were using. I mean, just running the whole club. Managers nowadays, or head coaches, they don't want to do that anyway.
No.
And see the second thing about Amorim, I saw somebody saying Amorim is as if he's looking for the sack. And you know something? The initial reaction to that is preposterous. But see, when you think about it, you say, well, what would the harm Ruben Amorim in getting sacked? See if they sacked him tomorrow, he gets a load of money.
That's what I thought. See, when I was
And
watching
he gets a Benfica job. He gets a Benfica job, or he gets Ajax.
As I was watching it,
Dortmund.
that was my actual
You know who I would
was
go
he
for as
knows
Manchester United
gig is
manager?
up.
Not that he's going to get him, but the one person right now that could sort it out, Ancelotti. Ancelotti could sort it out. Honestly.
He is someone that comes with that kind of stature.
Absolutely.
He does.
He just walks in and said, by the way,
He's also got a
this
nice
is-
touch.
This is the way we're going to play.
He's class,
You're
remember?
not
He is
playing.
class.
Remember him a couple
and he's
of
got a
years
really
ago?
light touch.
He's a class act.
Ancelotti sorts it out. The rest of them, the would-be potential managers,
Would
the
you
Man
leave?
United
Would you?
link.
Would you
I think
go back?
it's
Would you
probably.
leave?
I think this is his last
This is
season.
last season at Real Madrid. You know, and then you turn around and you go to yourself,
He
listen,
is
Carlo,
almost as well like part of an old school
Yeah.
generation. Like after Ancelotti, I don't know that there's too few left.
Yeah.
Because when you think about that dressing room he's managed.
Oh,
I know.
That again, they're striding away with it. Look as if they'll get the title again this year.
He got Everton up to 7th. For God's sake, who gets Everton up to 7th in the last 20 years? David Moyes, thank you. Well done. Just before we go, I've just
Apart from David Moyes, what has the
absolutely.
Romans ever done for us?
Listen, just before we go, I watched the game between Benfica and Barcelona. It was just mayhem. Mayhem. You know, mental goalkeeping, crazy shots that come off a guy's head.
That was that goal. That is the most bizarre
It's the most bizarre goal ever. But by the way, great game, 9 goals. That's what you want, and it led me to believe. I remember, you know, the Barcelona one when they had to come back against Paris Saint-Germain, which was mental. I had Dortmund 8, Legia Warsaw 4. Were you at that game?
No, it wasn't that one.
Bayern Munich 9, Dynamo 2, Monaco 8, Deportivo La Coruña 3. I think Dado Prisho played in that game.
Oh yeah.
And Barcelona 2, Bayern Munich 8. There's a few belters in there. Tottenham 2, Bayern 7, Man City 6, Leipzig 3. These are all listed on the UEFA website of those big high-scoring games that stick in your mind. I wonder if there's any others that you...
I think that, not quite of that thing, but one of the great ones that go back to Celtic Juventus 4-3 was a topper.
Yes.
There was a Liverpool 4 each as well, wasn't there?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Even Liverpool's final one, you know, the kind of
that's
3-3. I know it's a
that's
3.
Even Liverpool coming back against Barcelona.
That was one of the greats. That was one of the
one of the
great
greats.
nights. That was one of the great nights.
Real Madrid keeping pulling it out the fire like it was just 2 seasons ago.
Man City. Yeah, absolutely. There are some great.
And
They
Man
had to
City
score 2
Tottenham.
goals. They had to score 2 goals.
I mean, Man City Tottenham at the beginning of VAR, 4-3 for Man City. Then Man City scored through to the final or through to the semi-finals of the European Cup. But suddenly the goals chalked off, and all the fans are outside. Manchester City fans are all going, "We're on our way to it." And then Sky reporter said, "And what do you think of the game?" "Oh, man, it was 4-3." So,
It's your worst nightmare, isn't it, Hugh?
and then subsequently in that tournament, Ajax versus Tottenham in Holland.
That's a great shout as well, Hugh. That
What a
was
game that
belter
is.
game.
And that shows you as well is how quickly football moves on, because I was thinking about it today. Where is Lucas Moura or where is Moura?
Yeah. Fantastic.
he
I
now?
know. What a game. And by the way, the other great thing about it is they get to the Champions League final, lose to Liverpool, and then a few months later, Daniel Levy sacks Pochettino.
Aye.
That's what football's all about these
Aye.
days. Listen, some belter games, some great chat with everyone on the panel. I hope you enjoyed it. You can throw in your own tuppence worth on fantastic Champions League games with goals aplenty. You might disagree with our all-time Scottish 11. Why not throw in the players that you think should merit a mention, or indeed a different 11 from the ones that we've chosen? It's also a momentous programme, as Ali pointed out when I said I am wrong. It does happen regularly, believe me, by the way. But and that's because Hugh's on
Maybe
as
you
well.
should be the next Manchester United manager.
Say, well, I'll tell you, I did throw it in.
Like that.
I did throw it in.
I'm wrong.
Ancelotti, and you eventually went, you're right. But yeah, we can all make mistakes. Thanks to Ali. Brilliant to have Ali with us. And of course, Andrew, as ever, and Hugh MacDonald. If you like what you're listening to and watching, don't forget, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel. And also thank you to so many of you who are listening and enjoying the podcast as well. There's lots of great content coming up. If you get a chance, hit that subscribe button and join the football family. From all of us here on the Journos, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.